Okay, starting up in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd of the Third Power, your one-stop shop. Ugh. Didn't even make it 10 seconds in.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would have clipped really hard in that one anyway. You really did yell that.
Okay. Alright. 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd of the Third Power, your...
You need a script.
I do.
Take a breath.
Hello, Shut up. Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd of the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo, and we have a full studio in here tonight. Oh, it's great to have the whole family together again. With us, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime gods, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I'm very, very tired. I'm very, very warm. And I'd really like it now. All in favor of napping instead of having a podcast? Raise your hand. This makes for great radio, guys.
Yes, this episode we just sleep.
Oh, God, I'd listen to that, though. It's just like sleeping ASMR. You just hear like light snores and shifting of bed sheets.
You'd hear the sound of my CPAP machine and probably the cats running around.
I mean, that's good ASMR, though.
And Mike, how are you doing?
Well, my hovercraft is still full of eels. I'm doing fantastic.
All right, and back with us after a long absence. We've missed them dearly. Skyblaze, how are you doing?
Better than I have been. Still not perfect, but getting there.
All right, well, we are glad to have you back. So, yes.
Oh, that's nice.
We got a fun show for you guys tonight. Tonight we're discussing comfort media, and this is a listener participation episode. So we got some responses from you guys about what your comfort media is, what stuff that you'd like to keep going back to, books, movies, games, the whole 9 yards. So that's going to be a lot of fun. But of course, there is procedure to follow, and we are going to start, as always, with Ask Geek and Skyblaze. We got a bit of a backlog here for you. So our first question here, this one comes from Lyle, and he asks, what are your thoughts on the announced Sonic movie sequel?
Well, the first one didn't suck, so hopefully the next one won't suck as well. Personally, well, we know Tails is going to be in it. I'm personally hoping Knuckles is as well, because they've already introduced the echidnas. My husband is hoping that Shadow the Hedgehog is going to be in it. I think he's reaching for the stars a bit for that one.
Did you intend to make a pun out of that?
I know it's also the name of well, it's the music from Sonic Colors.
Yeah.
Reach for the stars. I work for Radio Sega, Konzo. Of course I know that.
Well, I just didn't know if the pun had been intentional. Oh, can you really? I don't know.
It's not a pun. It's just a kind of a reference.
I'm working on 4 hours of sleep. Leave me alone.
That's fair enough.
Okay. So what kind of story do you think that they would have to tell with the sequel? Because I think that was sort of an issue that you and I had when we did our review of the movie, is that there weren't really a whole lot of legs to how they set up that story.
It's to be that Tails is looking for Sonic for some reason, which suggests that there's some sort of problem back on the planet he's from. Possibly it's called Mobius. We haven't established it. That Sonic needs to help with. Was Tails sent by the awesome bird person that raised Sonic? Because that would be cool. Because I think they were a cool character. I'd like to see more of them. But we just don't know enough. I mean, there's a couple of ways it could go. And obviously they need to get Robotnik back somehow, who's currently marooned on a planet of mushrooms.
And probably having a jolly time.
Going screamingly insane.
Okay, alright. And let's see here now. There is another one here, and this one comes from Paul. And his question for you is, what do you think is the most underrated Sega console of all time? I have a feeling I know what the answer to this one is going to be.
Dreamcast. It's the Dreamcast. Because the Dreamcast was brilliant, and so many features of it are things that were then incorporated into other consoles later. Things like online connectivity, the Windows compatibility with Windows CE, which then became part of the Xbox. the fact that it came with 4 ports by standard GameCube. Just saying.
Well, that one the N64 did first, so I don't think the Dreamcast can claim that.
The VMU memory card meaning there's a screen in the controller.
See, it's those little touches like that I miss. You just don't see those anymore.
Welp.
So, but we actually did a whole episode on the Dreamcast. So if you want to hear Skyblaze's full thoughts on the Dreamcast, go ahead and listen to that one.
I know that my husband is going to disagree with me on this because he thinks it's the Saturn, and I think he's wrong.
I think, you know what? I'd make a case for the Sega CD personally.
Really?
Yeah, and here's why.
Interesting.
And here's why. Mostly because everybody can say the Dreamcast was wonderful, but it didn't get its due in its day. Nobody talks about the Sega CD. There were some fantastic games for it. It made CD gaming more accessible to a lot more people, though it did introduce the Frankenstein console.
More accessible in that it existed.
Well, I think it made CD games more interesting. It also opened up a lot more storytelling possibilities for certain games. So, plus, without the Sega CD, would we really have the ESRB with Night Trap and all that shit? So think of that what you will. But I don't know. I'm a big Sega CD mark. I've just always enjoyed that console a lot more than I probably should.
I'm just raising my eyebrows at you saying nobody talks about the Sega CD. What YouTubers do you follow? Because everyone that I know talks about the Sega CD.
Yeah, but every fanboy jerks off over the Dreamcast too. That's why I don't say it's underappreciated. It's finally gotten its recognition that it rightly deserved when it launched. But the Sega CD, it's still, it's popular, but only among YouTubers. That's my 2 cents.
With the Sega CD was how much the software that came out for it, certainly in the US and Europe, relied on the FMV games that were not of the best quality.
I think that's where I have a love for it, because I love those terrible games.
Okay.
I love Double Switch, I love Night Trap, Sewer Shark, all those
Oh
ones.
my god, I've actually played Sewer Shark, it's really terrible.
Yes, it is, and it's beautiful.
You know, I've actually got a funny story about Sewer Shark. So a buddy of mine, I think I mentioned my buddy Chip, he grew up with owning a Sega CD. And he had Sewer Shark, and he swore up and down that it only ever got released as a pack-in for the Sega CD, that it didn't get its own full big box release. And we argued back and forth for years about it, and it finally got resolved last year and went to one of the game stores, and I actually found a sealed big box copy of Sewer Shark in a glass case at one of my retro stores. And sent him a picture, and I was like, "Ha! You owe me $100, bitch."
Did he pay up?
He did. Not in cash, though. He wound up buying me a game that I really wanted for my collection for my birthday, so I considered that payment enough. So, yeah. So that's my funny sewer shark story. I didn't buy it because that game is awful, and I found something else that day that I really wanted, so I just bought that instead. Okay, and let's see here now, Mike. I had one here for you. Although I'm going to open it up to everybody here. Well, I mean, at the very least, Skyblaze, I don't know. Kat might have something to comment on. But the question is are we excited about the announcement for the English dub of the Persona 5 anime? So, Mike, let's start with you on this one.
Fuck yes, but at the price, fuck you. Yeah, stupid excited. September 29th cannot come fast enough. I'm going to find a way to watch this legally if I can. I can't believe the price of it, but I hear this particular company is kind of known for that. But the fact that it's got the original voice cast, there's a trailer came out for it a little while ago. I must have watched like 3 times last night. Yeah, I'm super excited for this. I know it's not a perfect translation of the game, but you know what? It's something. I'm excited.
Okay, well, I think Kat can expand a little bit on the pricing. So, Kat, do you know anything about why this set is like, what is it, $300?
Yeah.
Oh no! Is it in an Aniplex of America release?
You bet it is.
I was gonna say at that price, it's almost certainly Aniplex. I don't know why their shit's so expensive. And it's actually kind of neat because they don't always localize. They don't always dub their stuff. It's because I think it's the Aniplex of America is owned by Aniplex, and so it's not like, okay, so Funimation is an American company whose parent company is an American company. Aniplex is a Japanese-owned company, owned by a Japanese-owned company. So I don't know why, but it gives them a lot better like creative control over their releases. So what they tend to do is they tend to offer like really, really high quality like collector's edition sets with like really nice packaging and stuff like that. So it tends to be more expensive than a normal release. I don't know why that is though, because it would seem to me that well, I guess if I really dug into it, maybe it's because they I guess because they own all the rights. I would guess. So like I think if like a normal anime company like Funimation bought a show, they'd have to buy like a package deal to get like on their contract like home video rights, streaming rights, all of the other kinds of rights that you'd need. But it might be limited in what they're actually allowed to buy. Whereas because Aniplex is already owned by Aniplex, they might I don't know if Aniplex of America has to buy like rights for distribution in other countries from itself. Because I don't know that they if Aniplex of America distributes outside of the US or not. But I imagine it has something to do with their contracts that just make it like so that it's just, I don't know. Like I imagine they have to pay more because they're keeping like they have more rights. That's all I can think. I know that doesn't really make sense to me, but it could be something along those lines where the package that they have for distribution is just much larger and more encompassing because it's their parent company. But it could just be because it's a Japanese company. They're super, super overcharging for it because they want to put out a higher quality product. And Persona's a big name and they know they can overcharge for it.
And people will pay it.
Yeah.
All right. Skyblaze, what about you? You stoked?
I don't even know if it's coming out in the Europe, so meh. But I'm certainly not paying that price for it.
Did the original sub version ever make it to the UK?
Not seen it, but I've not really looked into it very much.
Okay, because over here for a while it was on Hulu. I don't know if it still is, and I started watching it.
We don't get Hulu here.
Well, I also know that you also know how to work a VPN, so
yeah.
It's on Hulu and I think Crunchyroll, but I'm not sure whether it's still there.
Yeah, I started and I got like halfway through, and then I realized that it didn't cover the full story. And I think like the last like couple chapters of the game are told in a movie, and Hulu didn't have the movie, so it's like, well, I mean, there's really no, it's Caprica Part 2. I'm not going to get my heart invested in something that I'm never going to be able to finish the story on, even though I've played the games and already know how the story ends. So I'm really just being anal about the whole thing.
I just Googled it, and it is licensed in the UK. Whether or not the dub is, I don't know.
Yeah, like I can't imagine spending this much for this little content. I mean, $300 is a lot. In Canadian, that's a fuck of a lot more. The only box set recently I've paid that much for, because it was a pre-order, was the limited edition Shout Factory Friday the 13th set, because I got the art prints with it too. And that's every movie Friday the 13th has ever put out, with shit tons of new special features, shit tons of everything else. The Persona set comes with the 26 episodes, the 2 special episodes, some art cards, and that's it. Not worth $300.
Okay.
Yeah, on the one hand, more Morgana. On the other hand, I am not paying that.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Next couple questions come from Megan. They're both addressed to me, but I'm going to open the first one up. And her question is, I know that you're a big fan of Persona 5. Are you excited about Shin Megami Tensei Nocturne being ported to the Switch and the announcement that we finally have a release date for Shin Megami Tensei 5? And I'm going to go ahead and open this one up because, we got it, as we've seen, we've also got a couple other Persona fans here. I I actually have never played any of the mainline Shin Megami Tensei games. I have Nocturne for the PS2. I got it years and years ago for my collection, just never picked it up and played it. Really ought to do it. So I really can't speak to, the quality of the game, because like I said, I've never played it. And Shin Megami Tensei 5, same deal. I've never played a mainline Shin Megami Tensei game, so I don't really know, if how different they are from the Persona games. I'll probably check out Nocturne, and if I like that, I will. I might pick up Shin Megami Tensei 5. But right now, I'm really kind of about the whole thing, because, like I said, I don't know anything about the mainline S&T games. I am excited that we finally got an announcement that Persona 5 Scramble is going to get a Western release. We don't yet have a release date, but we know that it's going to happen. So, knock on wood. So, Micah Skyblaze, what about you guys? Were you looking forward to Nocturne and SMT 5?
I don't know a lot about the games, much like you. I mean, I own them digitally, or at least one of them on PlayStation 3. I noticed today was in my download list. So I have them, and I have another Persona game for my Vita. But I've never played the Shin Megami games, so I don't know. I mean, ultimately, it'll come down to this, and this will mark me as, you're that guy, aren't you? As long as I have my dating simulator built in there, or life, yeah, I'm fine with it. I'll try it. I mean, ultimately, Alex, who works for Twig, will be doing the review of it, because he's way more of an RPG guy than me. But I'm interested. I'm way more interested in Strikers. Just give me a date for that.
Okay. Skyblaze?
Between Persona and the SMT series is that the mainline SMT series is a lot darker and more philosophical, I guess. It deals more with themes and religion and mythology, as opposed to the fantastical intruding upon an ordinary life. The fantastical kind of takes over the world pretty early on, usually in SMT games. And if you're hoping for the kind of dating simulator things like you get in Persona, and the kind of the life simulator stuff, that doesn't tend to be in SMT.
No.
They're much closer to ye old dungeon crawlers in terms of structure than the Persona series. Also, they're a lot harder in terms of difficulty curve. The difficulty curve is quite steep in mainline SMT, especially compared to something like Persona 4 or 5. SMT Nocturne, I thought it was okay, and I was very interested by the world that had been built and the characters and the bits of story that I'd got. And it's like you like in Persona 5, you got to recruit the demons. But it turns out that in Nocturne, once you get to a certain point with certain bosses, and the first one that you will encounter this where it's a problem is the Matador. If you do not have a very specific setup of demons and know how to confidently use buffs and debuffs, you will get your arse pasted. You will be a smear on the floor, and the game will basically say, oh, did you not pick up those demons like 3 dungeons ago? Oh, sucks to be you, you're gonna die.
I don't
And
like
that made
this.
me angry. But news that there's going to be free DLC in the reissue or the remake with an easy mode made me go, maybe I'll try it again. Maybe.
Okay. Alrighty. And her second question is this one is specifically to me. I have the same problem that you have with having very large hands, and it hurts my hands to play the Switch in handheld mode. Have you found any solution to this problem yourself? And yes, my solution is just don't play handheld. Because I stay home most of the time, so most of the time when I'm playing on the Switch, I just play docked. I very rarely play handheld. Now, I did find a setup that I really liked. When Daemon X Machina came out, Hori put out a special set of Joy-Cons called the Split Pad Pro, which is basically a Pro controller that's been split in half that you can attach as Joy-Cons. They don't have rumble, and they don't have gyro aiming. So they're very bare bones, but they're a very nice large size controller that's very comfortable to hold. in handheld mode. I tested mine out, and I actually found it really comfortable. I was actually playing Fire Emblem for several hours in handheld mode with this thing, and I really liked it. I don't know if the Daemon X Machina tie-in one is still being made, but there was an announcement put out the other day that Hori is actually releasing regular editions of the Split Pad Pro in various colors. So those will be coming out soon. So if you're looking for something, if you don't mind the fact that they're a little bulky by a couple orders of magnitude compared to the Joy-Cons, that might be a solution that might be worth pursuing. I don't remember the Split Pad Pro being very expensive. I think it was only like $40. So, that's something to look into. And that's all the Ask the Geek questions that we have for this week. Thank you as always for sending them in. As always, you can send them to us through the email at drgonzo@nerdofthethirdpower.com. We love getting your questions, love reading them on the air, so go ahead and get your questions in, and you just might get yours read and answered on the show. And with that, we're going to jump right into the meat and potatoes of this discussion, and we're all familiar with the concept of comfort food. Kat's mentioned that she likes fries. Skyblaze has mentioned that they like popcorn. And many is the evening that I spent in a bathtub with a pint of Chunky Monkey while I sob uncontrollably about what a disappointment I am to my father. I just want you to love me, Daddy. So, we're all familiar with the concept of comfort food. But one thing that nobody really talks about, at least not that we've seen, is comfort media. What is something like that? A piece of media that you keep going back to, like maybe a book that you reread every year, or a television show that you like to watch when you have some spare time, or when you're feeling a certain kind of way, or a game that you like to replay. So we thought it would be fun to talk about what our favorite comfort media is and why, and also get some input from you guys, our listeners. So this is a listener participation show. We got some responses here that we're going to read off later in the show. But I think first let's talk about some of our favorite comfort media. So Skyblaze, let's start with you. What's a piece of media that you like to keep going to, for whatever reason?
You probably know by now, but I suffer from fairly chronic headaches, and if I'm feeling really awful and or I'm recovering from a migraine, the thing I tend to do is I'll play a video game that I know backwards, that I can play with my eyes closed. So something like Sonic and Knuckles, or Kingdom Hearts 2, or Final Fantasy 7. Because I know everything about them, I know them backwards, I can do them easily, and it's nice and comfortable. Revisiting those worlds, particularly Kingdom Hearts 2 with like the Tron levels, those are great. Also, if I'm not feeling very well, then I will read David Eddings' books. Millennium Tamalai, Belgariad, and Malorian. I'll reread those for the 600 billionth time, because I first read them when I was like 12, and they are just like a nice, comfortable dressing gown that you wear when you're not feeling very well. Okay. And of course, classic Doctor Who. Because who doesn't love some classic Doctor Who?
Okay. Any particular favorites?
In classic Doctor Who?
Yeah.
Most anything with the Fourth Doctor in it, but particularly Pyramids of Mars, Genesis of the Daleks, a lot of the Sarah Jane stuff, the Doctor and Sarah Jane, because they're such a great partnership. Most of that kind of partnership ones. Ark in Space, Android Invasion, Hand of Fear, Mask of Mandragora, all that sort of era.
Okay, so your comfort media tends to be stuff that you can just kind of follow along with and not have to really expend a whole lot of brain power trying to figure out or follow along with, but stuff that you can just kind of go with the flow with.
Yep.
Okay, all right. Any other particular comfort media that you like to go to?
Almost the movie.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. Not many Transformers the fans that I know would call that comfort media, considering what happens in that movie. God knows I become a blubbering mess at Optimus Prime's death.
I'm more upset by Starscream's death, but that's beside the point.
Really?
I'm a big Starscream fan. Leave me alone.
Okay. Alrighty. Mike, what about you? What's some comfort media that you like to go to, and why?
Well, one of the things that I like to do when I'm depressed as all shit, hey, big surprise, I love going back and replaying Skyrim or Fallout 4. Basically, any of the more recent Bethesda games, and now with the advent of mods, if I want to run around as Commander Shepard with a ludicrous amount of guns fighting Mirelurk queens or like feral ghouls, I can do that. And that's really, really comforting because I can literally just build my bases how I want, craft an experience that I want, and just screw around with Skyrim. The advent of mods in there too has made exploring Tamriel a lot more interesting and weird. You haven't lived till you fought a Randy Savage dragon. And one of the other series, and I used to do this every year, I haven't done it in the last probably year and a half too, is I used to play the Mass Effect series, starting with Mass Effect 1 and ending with Mass Effect 3. And I would go through it, and you know what? I cannot play a Paragon. I try. I'm like, I'm going to be an asshole this time. Yep, never happens. I've done one Renegade playthrough as male Shep, but whenever I play girl Shep, I always play a Paragon. And that series is just, it absorbs me. It makes me feel good. It's the sci-fi universe I've fallen in love with the most over the last 10 years. It's probably my favorite next to Star Wars, all things considered, and considering it started out as an Xbox game back in 2007 astounds me. When it comes to movies,
God, that makes me feel old.
Oh yeah, movies. This is going to come to no surprise to anybody. RoboCop, Aliens, and it's a tie between the Terminator and Starship Troopers. Anything Paul Verhoeven touches is gold, even Showgirls. And I just thoroughly enjoy these movies. The biting satire of RoboCop is world famous. Plus, I love Peter Weller and Nancy Allen. Starship Troopers is ridiculous. It's so 90s fun, but it pokes fun at, politics and fascist regimes. Plus, they fight giant bugs, and what's not to love? And Aliens. My love for this franchise goes so deep, all the way back to the original. And I've just fallen in love with it. I've read the multiple comic books. I've read multiple novels. There's something very comforting about going to LV 426, knowing it's all going to go to shit. I love it. I can quote that movie like the back of my hand. And much like Skyblaze, the 1986 Transformers movie, big comfort food. If I'm ever having a really bad day and I know I don't have a whole lot of time, I got 90 minutes for that. I'll find it. And it's just, it's a fantastic, warm experience, despite seeing my boy Prowl get blasted in the face. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else? Book-wise, not so much, although I did have one book growing up, and it was called Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey.
Yep.
That was my first introduction to fantasy. This was even before I was into D&D. And I just fell in love with the world of Pern, and then I read the Harper Hall trilogy about Manoli. I can't remember what she was, but she was like a harp. I think it was a harper. Yeah, basically their version of a bard / teacher. And I just fell in love with it. And Pern is a world I like to come back to now and again. I haven't read anything beyond the original 3 books and the Harper Hall trilogy in a really long time. But those books take me back to childhood, and it's nice summer reading when I don't have a whole lot to do.
Okay, all right, nice. And Kat, I'm going to just go ahead and write down what I think your answer is going to be here, because I have a good feeling I know. All right, and go.
And it is, take a guess. It's fucking Lord of the Rings.
Hey.
Of course.
Ding, 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 ding.
Lord of the Rings. Everybody, if you've placed your bets, then go ahead and collect over there in the corner. Yeah, it's fucking Lord of the Rings. It's like my favorite. They're like some of my favorite books, and obviously my favorite movies. Not my top favorite movie, but among my favorite movies of all time. So they're definitely that kind of movie where when I don't know what I want to do with myself for the next 12 hours, I can put on Lord of the Rings. I only own the extended edition on Blu-ray.
As God intended.
As God
That's right.
intended. So, They're like, because it's a movie that like most people I'm friends with has already seen. So when I'm watching it, it's not like I'm watching it to show it to someone for the first time. I'm watching it because like I really just feel like I need to watch it again, and it always makes me feel a little bit better about the world because it is this heroic swords and sorcery, good versus evil story that makes you for a moment forget that the world is on fire and puts you in a place where like good can triumph over evil. So those are always good. I have a strange comfort media. This doesn't seem like it should be comfort media, but when I get like really sick, which doesn't happen that often, I like to watch unsolved mysteries, like the old unsolved mysteries. And it's mostly because they threw it up on like Amazon Prime a few years ago, and there's a lot of it. So it was one of these things where I could just like sit there half asleep on the couch, eating a bowl of soup and just like watching episodes and then occasionally remembering some of the details. And there's just something that definitely feels like childhood for our generation, at least.
It also helps that it's hosted by Robert Stack, whose voice is just a silky smooth audible chocolate that just wraps you up like a warm blanket and tells you that everything's going to be all right. Then he starts talking about paranormal shit and you get scared out of your pants.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where when we watched it as youngins, I almost said younglings, but the younglings don't make it. When we watched it when we were young, this was like, for people like me anyway, this was like the height of horror, because my family, I don't come from like a horror family. Like we're not a bunch of people who enjoy an abundance of horror films. We didn't really have any around the house, except for maybe like Poltergeist, which is not comfort media. So this was like something that was kind of scary that we could watch once a week as it aired. That was true. All of that stuff was, it was something that had actually happened, kind of more or less maybe. So it was very accessible kind of horror or accessible paranormal. And now, it's really fun to go back and rewatch it and go, I can't believe I was scared of this when I was a kid. This is so stupid. And then also go, ha ha, look at that woman's big 80s hair. Like, oh my god, it's so much fun to just go back and rewatch that show as an adult in their 30s who just like doesn't believe any of it now, because a lot of it has either been disproven or proven. Like the unsolved mysteries are now, a lot of them are actually solved, and it's really fun to go back and see what the end results were and who ended up getting arrested 15 years later.
Actually, some of them, I don't know if it's on Amazon, but I know the ones on YouTube that they threw up in the last year or two, they update them.
Yeah, the ones on Amazon are updated.
Oh,
so
okay.
If they've been solved, they'll make a note of it, and it's so fascinating to me to see which ones do and don't get solved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my show that I like to watch when I'm really, really sick, and I just, just am miserable. I don't really have like any comfort literature. There's nothing I really go to read. One of the things that has become a comfort media for me is a podcast called the Penumbra Podcast, which is a audio drama kind of show. And they have two different series that they produce. And one of them is a sci-fi noir series about a PI on Mars in the far, far future called Juno Steel. And the other one is a series that is a swords and sorcery series called The Second Citadel. And this is like something I found like within the last year. And I instantly fell in love with this podcast, these two series. And I have re-listened to the same episodes of this show like an embarrassing number of times. Like if you look at the hit counter for number of listens per episode, like half of them have got to be mine. Like it's really ridiculous. Like this episode has been listened to 1,000 times. Like, yeah, 500 of them are by me in the span of like a couple weeks. And I keep going back to them because they're it's really hard to describe, but the Juno Steel series feels really, really realistic, and not in that they're like PIs on Mars and there's like space and stuff. It's the characters themselves are all very I don't want to say troubled, but they're all very flawed characters, and the flaws that they have and the way that they very organically grow throughout, like the character development is very organic and subtle, and it feels really human. Like a character makes the same mistakes over and over because they know that they're making mistakes, but they don't know how to be any other way, and they have to go through a lot of stuff in order to actually change. And they have to like learn to value different things over the course of time, and learn to trust people and trust themselves. And it's just the way it's done is so astoundingly good. And then in the second Citadel, I love it because there's a lot of these very common fantasy tropes and character archetypes that are really turned on their heads. So, you know, there's the two knights who are, you know, going out to find the princess, and then or to find the damsel in distress, and then it turns out to be the girl that's practically their sister, and then they're all grossed out by it. So it's these wonderful, wonderful stories that I could just go back to and re-listen to approximately every other week. And that's what's really been getting me through this rough time that we are all in, that is known as 2020.
Yeah, it's a brief window back into the before times, the times of plenty that we so foolishly squandered.
AKA January.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see. For me, mine will probably surprise you, because I don't think I've ever mentioned whether or not I've watched either of these on the show before. But I have two pieces of comfort media that I really enjoy going to when I've got a spare moment, need some time to kill, or when I just need something to just kind of zen out with. And the first is a TV show from the late 90s called Frasier, starring Kelsey Grammer. It's about a radio psychiatrist and his work and family life, and it's one of those shows that I like going to because, you know, I really don't like sitcoms in general, because I feel like a lot of the, you know, humor in modern sitcoms is, you know, kind of like Family Guy level, which that's fine in small doses. Frasier tends to be something that the jokes are a little, you know, things that you really got to kind of think about, because it jokes on culture that, you know, not a whole lot of people really get into. So the jokes may be a little bit more obscure. So it's something that I can kind of, you know, give my brain. I would describe it as giving my brain kind of one of those hand exercisers, you know, that you'll, you know, might see someone just kind of idly squeezing in an office or at their desk or something to just kind of, you know, exercise their hand strength. You know, Frasier to me is one of those for my brain. It's something that I can just watch and laugh at some of the higher level jokes and get some enjoyment out of. And then the other one, and this is probably something that I shouldn't be watching, given that I'm on a diet and I'm trying to lose weight, and the last thing you want to do when you're trying to do that is expose yourself to food. But I've really enjoyed, really gotten to enjoy watching the work of Gordon Ramsay. I love watching Kitchen Nightmares on Hulu. And another thing I started doing is I follow his YouTube channel where he posts videos of him preparing like different recipes and dishes. And I love like watching him go through this process of preparing these dishes. And I've actually tried to cook a few of them myself. They've come out terribly because I can't cook for shit. But it's really just something nice to just zen out and just hear him talk about, okay, and we're going to braise this with the most amazing creme fraiche and season it with salt and pepper. And it's you know what it is? It's his voice when he's doing these cooking videos, because of course, you know, when he's not fucking shouting and cursing at everybody in the room like he does in Kitchen Nightmares, he's actually got kind of like, you know, this really soothing voice to listen to. You know, kind of like I said earlier with Robert Stack. It's just kind of wraps you up in a warm blanket and tells you everything's going to be all right. So, but again, probably not something I should be watching when I'm on a diet and trying to lose weight, because it's like, you know, oh hey, you know, there's this pot roast I'd like to learn to make, but it's probably like 3,000 calories, and I'll eat the whole thing in one sitting and just balloon. So. Yeah, so those are my big major comfort media. I'm sure you're probably surprised I haven't listened to any video games. But, I mean, I occasionally boot up Super Mario Brothers, but who doesn't? So, but anyways, but we're going to just jump right now into our listener responses, and we've got some good ones here. First one here comes from Celine, and she writes, one of my all-time favorite games is Final Fantasy VI. I've lost track of how many times I've played this game, how many times I've beaten it, and how many minutes of time were spent waiting for my PlayStation to load menus in the Anthology Collection version. Oh god, that is not the best way to play that game. This game hit me at just the right point in my life to not only entertain me, but inspire me to create due to its marriage of characters and job class, like Final Fantasy IV did this as well, but I played Final Fantasy VI first. While I still need a guide for some details, like getting the top score at the Imperial Banquet sequence, I now not only know how to break this game, but mechanics like the relic system scratch that same itch that I can scratch when building a new deck of Magic the Gathering cards. Yeah, Final Fantasy VI. Oh man, that's a good one. That's actually my favorite game in the series. Mike, you ever played Final Fantasy VI?
I have, and I just downloaded that today on Steam.
Oh,
I bought it today.
Ooh.
That's okay. I've got mods for it. I'm not worried.
not the best cut of that game. Not the best cut of that game. Ooh, God. Ooh, like yeah. No, I'm flashing. I'm having flashbacks to that graphic art. Okay. All right. Let's see here now. And Kat, here's one that you might enjoy. This one comes from Riley, and she writes, my favorite comfort media is Sailor Moon. I watched it as a little girl growing up, and I still love to pull out my old Deke dub. Yes, I know Kat will hate me for that. And watch it to get that sense of childhood nostalgia that I had when I was a kid.
I mean, it is a terrible dub. It's a terrible dub, but I mean, I watched it too, so I don't really have room to talk.
I love that dub, but I'm a terrible person.
No, but I mean, it's the they change people's names, and they didn't do the worst job of changing people's names in that show. Like they did their best, but like the censorship in that show is astounding and probably way too overboard. But no, I mean, like Sailor Moon is, for any anime fan, is going to be a huge nostalgia thing. I actually, if I want to be nostalgic about Sailor Moon, I go back and I reread some of the manga, just because it is a little easier and quicker to get through than rewatching the anime. But I have definitely sat down and rewatched that anime.
Okay, all right. Next one here comes from Starkiller, and Mike, this will be a man after your own heart. He writes, my favorite piece of comfort media is the Mass Effect trilogy. I absolutely love that world. I absolutely love that world and its characters. And every time I fire it up and see Shepard running around in Normandy, I feel like I have come home.
My boy, we are crewmates aboard the Normandy, and I'll be seeing you on the bridge. Good man. Good on you.
He adds, this is also why I was so disappointed in Mass Effect Andromeda.
The Tempest is nowhere near as cool.
All right. And let's see here now. This one comes from Paul, and he writes, my favorite piece of comfort media is the original Super Mario Brothers. My father bought me the NES as a birthday gift when I was 6 years old, and he inspired my love of video games. He passed away a couple years ago, and every time I play Super Mario Brothers, I feel like that he's sitting in the room with me watching me play. So, that's really touching. Okay. And let's see here now. Okay. Here's one that I picked just because it's so unusual. And this one comes from Donovan, and he writes, my favorite piece of comfort media is the horror movie Slither. I know that it doesn't sound like everyone's cup of tea because of how bloody and gory and horrific it is, but every now and then I just need something to work out some catharsis, and Slither does it for me. So Donovan, I would not be surprised if I saw you on the news someday for very bad things. Although if you do wind up doing something that gets you landed in jail, you'll be in good company, because our next one comes from Lyle, and he writes, my favorite piece of comfort media is the original Doom. I love to play it when I'm feeling really angry and pissed off, and it's great to work out aggression.
Interesting choice.
I guess I understand, like, for a gamer thing. Like, you need to take your aggression out on something and just do it on some, like, NPCs, and that's good. Slither? Is this like like bad people die in Slither, so it's like kind of cathartic to just like watch justice unfold.
I've
never seen Slither.
I've never seen it, but it's a body horror film. So lots of bad things happening to people's bodies.
I can't do that kind of film.
The point where I noped out of it was a bit at the end of the first trailer where the leads, I guess, go into this barn, and there's this woman who's just like ballooned to like the size of like a fucking semi truck, and she's just like, something's wrong with me, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm out. Nope, I'm pulling the ripcord, parachuting out of that.
It's one of the few James Gunn movies I haven't seen. It's on my list.
James Gunn film? Ugh.
Oh yeah, pretty sure it was.
Yep, that was actually one of his first. Who'd have thought he'd have gone on to do Guardians of the Galaxy from that? That's a bit of a leap.
Gravy.
All right, and let's see here now. Next one here comes from Samantha, and she writes, she's got one that's really close to my heart. My favorite piece of comfort media is Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I saved a bunch of videos from the Twitch stream that they did a couple years ago in tribute to Fred Rogers, and I love to pull them out and watch them anytime that I'm feeling really stressed. And yeah, you know what? I have to confess, I do that too sometimes. I've got some Mr. Rogers episodes in on a drive that I like to pull out every now and then to just watch, just when I'm feeling kind of high strung and need to kind of cool down a little bit.
I totally get this, because we were talking about people with soothing voices earlier. Is there anybody with a more soothing, calming tone than Mr. Rogers?
Not that I can think of.
Besides, like, Bob Ross, maybe? The
guy who does a lot of the BBC documentaries, they reference him in Jurassic Park. Help me out with his name.
Richard Kyler?
Yeah! We spared no expense.
Yeah.
How did I know that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Fuck.
I'm genuinely asking, how did I remember that? Because like that's like such a minor detail. I'd have expected Kat to pull that one out before I did.
I mean, if you'd have given me 3.5 more seconds.
Okay. Yeah, Bob Ross. That's another. Watching Bob Ross, that just brings peace to troubled hearts, man. All right, let's see here now. Another one here. This one comes from Derek. And speaking of the devil, his comfort media is Bob Ross. He says, I love to put Bob Ross on when I'm at work and just listen to it in the background. And no matter how stressful my work day gets, I always come down really quickly because of just how soothing Bob Ross's voice is. Man, we're just talking a lot about soothing voices today. I think it's like we're all on an ASMR kick and we just don't even know it.
It's got to be something like that. Like, there's just stuff that as soon as you put it on, you can't feel unhappy. Like, you can't be angry with Bob Ross around because Bob Ross wouldn't want you to be angry. It's the same thing with Mr. Rogers. Like, it immediately brings you down because you know that if he saw you upset, that he would, like, fix it for you.
Okay, and let's see here now. Richard's answer is just 3 words, and it leads me to believe that he is also going to wind up in a cell at some point. His comfort media is apparently Happy Tree Friends. So, yeah.
To be fair, like, Happy Tree Friends is old now. It is passé. It is what you might call nostalgic at this point, because that's how old we are, guys. So I could see Happy Tree Friends being like the equivalent of like Ren and Stimpy, where you're like, oh man, I haven't seen that in forever. Let's throw that on. Remember being in community college? Maybe.
Our generation is like the Tom Bombadils of the internet. We remember the first dial-up modem. We remember the first client-side server. We remember the first file sharing service. We remember Napster.
Oh god. Oh, LimeWire.
Yeah.
Oh Lord, we're old guys.
Nowadays, when the youngins hear a dial-up login sound, they think that their speakers are just broken.
They might have learned about it in movies. I like to give young people credit.
I don't. Young people suck. You really don't. I'm just kidding. All right, let's see here now. And let's see one more before we call it a day. Let's see here now. Okay, here is one from April, and I'm kind of laughing at the joke behind this one. She writes, I know this is going to sound funny given my name, but my favorite piece of comfort media is the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon.
Oh, bless you. That
Good
was
pick.
the greatest answer you could have given, April.
I love it.
I can definitely see that, because that goes back to like nostalgia and things that we loved as kids. That they're safe. They're one of those safe shows where at the end of the day everybody learns an important lesson. And it's
it's usually something like don't trust the pizza man, not the guy who delivers the pizzas. I'm talking about the man who's actually shaped like a slice of pizza. Yes, that was an episode. I swear to God, it was.
Oh my God. Well, the pizza dude had 30 seconds. So like it's just one of those things. It's completely and utterly harmless, I want to say. I don't think there's been any like major controversies over it. You could just go back and guilt-free rewatch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and just be like, remember childhood.
See, I wasn't allowed to watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was a kid.
They did have a minor controversy where they had to change the usage of their weapons after, I think, the first 1 or 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think it was like the first 5 episodes. That's the only time you ever actually saw Leonardo cut something with his swords on screen. After that, it was only ever off screen. I can't, going back and watching the show now as an adult, I can't, the only 2 conclusions I can draw about why my parents wouldn't let me watch Ninja Turtles was because either they thought it was more violent than it actually was, or they thought that it was going to give me a rebellious attitude, because, remember, grew up in the 90s, the whole, kids versus parents thing wasn't, bad influence. There's a lot of stuff that I wasn't allowed to watch as a kid that people are surprised about. Like, I wasn't allowed to watch Beetlejuice, the cartoon series, because my parents thought, because my mother thought it was too scary. My mom flipped out about an episode of Tiny Toon Adventures where they played with a Ouija board, because we were a church-going family back then, and she thought that it was it was Satanism. My dad didn't want me to watch Ren and Stimpy. I'll give him that one, because that show was vulgar as hell. Funny, but like I was like, okay, I can at least see where he was coming from.
Hindsight being what it is.
Yeah. So, which is kind of ironic when you also consider that my dad also let me watch a whole bunch of like violent movies as a kid, and play a lot of violent games. He made sure that like I understood, like, okay, this is fantasy violence, this isn't behavior to be emulated. But he just like would not let me watch Ren and Stimpy. I think just because it grossed him out. So I'm
My
like,
parents gave
okay, you know what? Fair, I'll give you that.
Oh, this brings an idea to mind of what if we had a whole episode just about the shit our parents would and would not let us watch. I'm curious.
That list would be depressingly short for me. The only rule I couldn't watch was porno. Watch whatever you want, just don't fuck anybody. That was literally, I learned that at age 5. Not even kidding.
Maybe that'll be our next listener participation episode. But
like
anyway. We have unfortunately run out of time. That's all. So that is about all the time that we have for Nerd to the Third Power this week. Thank you as always for tuning in, and thank you to all of the listeners who sent in responses for this episode. We're sorry that we weren't able to read all of them, but we only have so much time in the day. So thank you to everyone who sent them in. We do appreciate your correspondence. We love getting your questions. We love getting your responses. We love hearing from you guys. So thank you as always for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat. That's a goldfish underwater.
I'm Mike.
All right, we'll see you next time. Taka, play us out.